For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 8.14, All Rise, where we are covering the novel Grave Peril. My name is Tansenn, and I am joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hi.
Chapter 28. Dresden convinces Susan to leave the party, even though she is reluctant and no longer seems to trust him. As they leave, they come upon Mavra of the Black Court of Vampires. Dresden figures out she is who's pulling the nightmare's strings. Mavra threatens to harm the person who is not under the laws of protection, but the trio are able to defend themselves. As they are about to leave, court begins, and they are unable to escape. So Dresden is gobsmacked that Susan doesn't know who he is.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a, are you fucking kidding me? I think that's pretty much what he says. He's like sort of a... So, yeah, sorry, it's gonna sound odd, do I know you? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you, mister. It's like, Dresden?
Poor guy.
Like, oh, yeah, aren't you the guy that just opened up? Yeah.
Which means she did. It's a nice, quick view into how she first met him.
Yeah, I suppose.
Didn't you just open up a place?
Aren't you a guy who just opened a business as a wizard? I would love if we could sit down and talk sometime. So Michael's like, Harry, I think we gotta get going, like, right, things are gonna end, and he's like, yeah, and then he's all, and I get this, but even in this day and age, it's a little, like, it seems like a lot longer than early 2000s, but he's like, Susan, and she's like, I don't know you, it's Miss Rodriguez. I'm like, I don't think I've ever had anybody call me Miss or Mrs. or, you know,
yeah, it's
I'm
weird.
like, I know sometimes it's weird, like, sometimes... Like, I can remember sometimes my parents getting a bit... Because they definitely were more along, like, they'll call me Mr. and Mrs. And, like, my friends growing up would call them, like, Mr. and Mrs. They wouldn't call them by their first names or whatever, right? And then it was weird, because I had one or two of my friends' parents who were like, you can just call me. And I'm like, no, I can't. Right. My parents have, like, drilled this into me. It's weird. I can't. You're so-and-so's mom. You're Mrs. Whatever, right? But certainly, you know, by the time I had reached adulthood and stuff like that, but yeah, they'd be like, oh, you're like, you know, cashiers in the grocery store, like addressing you by your first name or something, you know, if you paid with like a check or a credit card or something. And I'm like, yeah, it's been that way my whole entire life. Like, you know, like it's become that push of like, be more friendly, get to know people, call everybody by their first name, you know?
Yeah.
So it's funny to me that being of like a similar age and stuff like that, like this is 20 years ago.
Right.
She's like, call me Miss Rodriguez.
Well, I wonder if it's because she's on the job kind of thing. Yeah. Like she doesn't recognize him, he's a stranger, and she's working.
I get that. Like I sort of see, but it's just funny to me because...
Yeah, as a young to mid-20s, it's still a little bit like...
Yeah, it was like obviously he knows your name. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's just weird. It's just, I don't think I've ever, like, corrected anybody and been like, I don't know you, don't call me that, you know? Yeah. Like, even if it was vaguely, even if it was like, I don't know you, why are you? But, yeah, it was just sort of funny to me that she's that specific. Yeah, professionals, I guess maybe that's why I'm, you know, not an accredited journalist like Susan or something, because I just don't have the oomph to go out there and be like, excuse me, do not call me by my first name.
Yeah. So they talk to Susan a little bit more, and they sort of figure out that the memory loss is very specific to Dresden, to Michael, and to Leah. Like she remembers doing things, but doesn't remember their interaction with her. Yeah. Which I think that's interesting use of taking time out of context. So it's 1 year of memory, but it's very specific. Like, here's 1 minute that's gone. Yeah. Not that whole 15-minute 15-minute time frame, but just the 1 minute that you were in
whatever.
There.
Yeah, exactly, right? That it's not just the last year or a random year. You know, she can't remember anything about from when she was 15, you know? It's like, exactly. It's picking and choosing what constituted that year. And again, this is why it's always lawyering with the fairies. Right. It's letter of the law, spirit of the law, you know, they assumed that would mean XYZ and said they got ABC and whatever. So, yeah.
Well, because she's known him longer than a year's time, correct? Like, from timeline from point A to point B.
It's been like, say, 3 years since 2 to 3 years since Stormfront, right? She already knew him right? So exactly, like, yeah, he opened up shop, a couple of years ago, and he says, I think in Stormfront when he's introducing her, that she tracked him down.
Yeah, I think it's been 1.5 since Stormfront.
Okay.
And then, a little bit before Stormfront.
So, it's probably been about 2 years, because, when he sort of first hung out his shingle or whatever, she was like, there's a wizard in town, and I gotta check, and, sought him out for an interview then, right? So they've been dating for, a year and a half or whatever now, but have known each other a bit longer.
Yeah, well, they've been dating, about 1 year, because it was full moon when they got together. Or
no,
right after full moon, wasn't it?
Their first date was in Stormfront when the Toad Demon came after
Oh,
them.
yes, you're right. Okay. Never mind then.
But anyways, regardless of whatever this...
When you're only taking, every time they were specifically with each other.
Yeah.
That cuts it down a lot,
Yeah, clearly it added up to less than a year's time.
Which, Harry, if you didn't blow off your girlfriend so much, maybe it would have been more than a year's worth of memories.
Ching!
Just saying.
Oof.
Just saying.
Guys, you're listening out there, give your girl a hug. Or, whoever your
longer than a year's worth.
Yeah, so this is interesting how they sort of piece this together. I mean, I've got to think it's got to be hugely disconcerting. First of all, listen, being told, like, exactly, if, to me, a stranger walked up and was like, no, we totally know each other, I'm like, yeah, whatever, especially in this day and age when people do creepy, weird shit like that all the time, and you're like...
just this day and age.
Well, okay.
Jack the Ripper, you are good. Ted Bundy, fine.
Fine. Once again,
Zodiac
there is
killer.
A broader scope to be able to... Was he just walking up to those women and being like, hey, we totally know each other. You met me last week. Come on, let's go hang out.
I need help getting to my car.
Well, that's
Can you help
different.
me carry these textbooks to my car?
I'm talking about if somebody came up and was like, I know
that was what he did.
Yeah, okay, but...
My arm's broken, help me. Blah, 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 blah.
Can we not? This is not a true crime murder podcast. We're not going there.
Yet. Maybe this will all become true one day.
No. However, my point is yes, I would be somewhat disconcerted if somebody, came up to me and swore up and down that they knew me and I knew who they were and we'd met before and I had absolutely no recollection of this. I'd be like, you're fucking psycho.
Especially since they're able to actually tell her things that they know things that she did.
And that's what we write. So this to me is the flip side. So on the one side, it sort of gets her thinking there might be something to it because otherwise, how would they know? I mean, maybe I'm sure her articles are published with her full name, so maybe just knowing who she is that way. But the details of how she got into the party and where she got the invitation and coming down to the jail, right? Those things she has. But she just doesn't remember the specific, like you say, Michael and Dresden or whatever. So it's both more believable and more upsetting.
It's like, I get being automatically hostile, because I am. But at the same time, though, it's also like one of those rules of life is like if someone comes up to you and tells you they're stuck in a time loop, you have to believe them.
Just because?
Well, yeah, you gotta help them escape the time loop. What did I do yesterday? Let me fucking break it and help you escape this hell.
Yeah.
You just gotta do it. If someone comes up to you and tells you they're in a time loop, you've gotta simply believe them, or...
Well, especially if they have evidence.
Guess how we're starting the podcast
you
next week.
You did this and this and this and this. Oh shit, gotta help you.
Timeline time. Yes, exactly, though. You just,
But you wouldn't remember. Because you didn't. Which is
why you have to it just has to be a rule of life that if someone comes up and tells you you're in a time loop, you've gotta just believe them. That's just like a rule of life. Like, no.
You have just started the next modus operandi for some sicko serial killer out there.
Which is, of course, listening to our podcast right
you
now.
You never know. These things
they
have
say
a way
you passed
of getting
25
around.
on the street. No.
Right? One person that somewhere will mention it, and it'll be out there on the internet, and it'll spread
What are the
around,
odds of serial killers listening to a
s-
podcast made by serial killers?
It's another... Well, now we're going to get shut down. Oh, man. So this is very strange. I mean, again, let's hear it for literary book characters and movie plots that just take things in stride. You're stuck in a time loop? Okay, I'll help you. So, she's like, I don't really... So, I mean, in all fairness, it's kind of like, she's like, this is the weirdest pickup line ever, which I was like, I get, but...
If I'm ever stuck in a time loop, I'm not coming to either of you. Clearly, neither of you would be helpful.
Apparently not. But
I might believe.
I don't know. You did.
Okay, not Mom.
You got some splaining to do, Lucy. Yeah, you'd have to convince me.
Mom
See, if
wouldn't
I had
even-
a gap in my memory of like, although in all fairness, lots of times I have gaps in my.
We've already gone through this whole like.
this. I don't remember.
Lord knows I have gaps in my memory. Hello, Dresden Files. Nice to meet you again.
But Mom's already admitted to having face blindness of herself.
That's true.
So yeah, I don't think I'd have come to Mom anyways for help. Every morning she looks in the mirror and she's like, "Who's that?" Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, yes. When I first get up in the morning and look in the mirror, I probably am doing a scare jump. I'm like Harry, like I just actively. Oh, I don't want to know what's there. I don't want to see that. Anyways, so yeah, good, bad, indifferent, believable or not, I don't know. She's definitely wary, and he's like, let's all get out of here, and she's like, I don't know you. But he's like, okay,
Susan, so you don't even know how many times he's blown you off, so you should be very chill and happy with him.
Right? Well, she doesn't like him, other than the fact that he's like, hi, we just met, let's leave this party. And she's like, I don't think so, weird guy. And he's like, okay, I get that. At least let us, like, escort you out of here. Because, you know, she does remember that she's at a vampire party and all of that kind of stuff. And that she came to get her story and everything like that. She knows why she's there that way. She knows she got a fake invitation. Just doesn't remember how or where or whose. So she does kind of agree that, okay, she will let these two guys, you know, at least help her out of where they are. Because he's like, do you have a car and everything? And she's like, So he's like, fine, just let us get you out. Which... Again, small here. I'm like, that seems just as creepy. Like, if you're gonna, are you gonna get, like, literally, like, just outside the house, and then they're gonna, like, watch you walk down the street? Or are you gonna let them walk you, like, to your car? Because it seems like once these two guys have you at your car, it's not that hard to shove you in the vehicle and drive off with you, or shove you in the trunk, or do whatever. So I don't know what her plan is sort of outside of.
Do you know what I thought was interesting, though? But they do eventually... She does eventually agree.
Yeah.
And she turns off a voice recorder. Click.
Yeah, that's
Which has been recording the whole conversation
that
of her with Leah agreeing to give up 1 year of her memories.
That is true.
And he hears it.
Yeah,
he hears it
her
go click.
He
So
her
he
turn
knows
off.
she's recorded the conversation.
Yeah, you could be like, hey, can you just back that up a few minutes? Now, who knows, with fairy magic, maybe she could have deleted the tape too, I don't know. But you're right, why didn't they go, wait a minute, did you just turn off a tape recorder?
Oh.
I could understand why not playing it in the moment, though, would be a bad idea, you know? Like, it was much better to, like, let's get out of here, not stop to watch a video on your phone. Like,
I guess, but considering she's, like, doesn't want to go with him, that, as you say, would have been a quick and easy way to prove that you know us. And
But even that one, I'd be willing to, like, that would take too long to, like, who knows when she started recording. If it was 3 hours ago and it's an old-timey recording,
they
you might
only
not
have
be
to
able
back
speed
up 5
through it.
minutes to the conversation.
Can you back up on it? Can you just stop
Oh, my-
recording, start at the beginning? How would I know?
Oh.
I wasn't alive 400 years ago when it was invented.
Ouch. Okay, so do you know how on computers and things you have, like, a fast forward and a rewind
Yeah,
button?
on a computer, a tiny little thing.
Those exist because they used to be on actual tape recorders and things, and you could fast forward and you could rewind. And you could just click on it and have it rewind all the way to the beginning until it stopped. Or you could just hold it down for a bit and have it rewind and then stop it and play from where it was.
And it made that funky little weird sound when it did it.
Yeah, I just did it, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, they could have just backed it up a little bit. So, but yes, that is also a very good point of blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, where I was first going when you said that is that, yeah, she finally agrees to go out with these two strangers. Leave the fucking, they don't know you're recording this. Leave the fucking tape recorder on in case they try to do something.
Right?
Now you've got,
Yeah, that's
I have a recording of these two guys who tried to kidnap me.
Obviously, 2 men escorting me a party is when I start the recording.
Right? Exactly. So there's all kinds of things that are just inky about this whole butcher.
It's just like a male author to be like, vampires are the only scary thing here. Click.
Wow. That was awesome. That was very awesome. I've seen too many of those.
We already know he's pretty lacking on the female perspective in these books.
I will actually say, though, that somebody brought up a good point recently on the internet. They're like, if you read his other series, he has none of that male gaze. He's like, he doesn't have it when he talks in, like, Thomas's point of view. He doesn't have it when he talks in Murphy's point of view. The only time that male gaze comes up is when he's talking in Dresden's point of view. So I was like, that actually helps me, you know, give Butcher a little bit more credit, you know? Because it doesn't come up. None of his characters in the Cauldron of Oogie Boogie Boo. I don't know what the fuck his other series are. I haven't read them. Cinder Spires and
The Furies of Caldera.
and Fury of whatever you said.
Caldera.
Anyways, yeah.
The Codex Alera.
Even his, yeah.
Oh,
even
Furies
his,
of Calderon. That was the first book. Furies of Calderon, the Codex Alera, and the Cinder Spires.
those two, yeah. Apparently, you know,
They're
even his male
not
characters in there don't have the same sort of.
So,
you know.
so this is purposeful that he does.
So yeah,
this.
it's well, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Is that like it's part of just Harry's like, you know, flaw is just like this overly chauvinistic and sometimes misogynistic sort of a thing going on, you know. But yeah, it's you know, sometimes even
20-year-old
more.
boy. Girl. Pretty.
Which, to be fair, also, you know, was how old Butcher was when he first wrote these, and now he's, you know, as he's written his
Not.
other series. I'm pretty sure he was in his 30s by the time he started his other series. At the very least, late 20s if he started them before they were publishing things, but...
Seems legit, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that could also help.
Maybe he got that feedback. You know, maybe you got to lay off on that a little bit.
So, yeah, no, that is fair.
The trio are about to leave, and Dresden senses someone. He uses the sight and discovers the Hamlet lookalike. Turns out she's a she, and carrying. I love that she's carrying a real skull.
I know.
Nice and creepy.
I know.
Yeah.
He's like a real skull. The blood stains were more than like a few hours old. They're like it's real and it's fresh,
Which is
Big.
extra gross.
which is just
Yikes.
perfect vampire.
Aw.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks. Again, this is his way to like introduce characters quickly without a lot. So creepy person with a real skull. Okay, you get who she is. Yeah, let's go. So she, I would say she looks like Death warmed over, but apparently she doesn't even have the warmed over part. She's just got like filmy, gauzy cataract eye. She's got like pallid,
Blue
almost
tinged.
like translucent blue-gray skin, and very unnatural lack of movement. So like her mouth and her eyes as they're talking, but like her whole entire body.
A real looker.
Yeah, we really get an introduction to the black
Court.
with this. We've got a little tiny taste of the white court, just a little bit.
Just yeah.
This is one character that's very,
An
very pretty.
appetizer with
the
Thomas.
tom-tom?
Yeah, we know
Yeah.
quite a bit more about the red court.
Yeah, and
because of the
that-
previous books.
Incorporates some sort of generic vampire lore that we know, but also has some different. And
Have you ever heard of Vampire the Masquerade? It's a live
Yes.
role-playing game.
Yes.
So there are different classes of vampires, and this is what it completely reminds me of, because there's like not all vampires are like the very typical Bram Stoker vampire.
Right.
Like this. So you've got the ones that are the Nosferatu that are ugly and can't socially interact with
disguise
people,
as-
and then
yeah.
Bruja. I forget. I don't.
Brouhaha.
There's Bruja.
Rue McCallaghan, what?
Yeah, but they have like I think 12 different kinds of clans,
Right.
which this completely reminds me of. It wouldn't surprise me if some of this lore was borrowed from
Whichever came first.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, essentially Jim Butcher said. He's like, I went and found like every piece of vampire lore ever, and I divided it up between 4 groups. So I'm sure, yeah, he stole it from, if that had already existed, I'm sure he would have gone there as well and stolen some things from that as well as
Yeah.
every other vampire lore thus far. But we also know from earlier in the book, too, like, that, I don't know who it was, someone's made a throwaway comment, and they're like, the black cord or whatever's left of it,
Thomas.
like, was it Thomas? Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like,
when they meet Thomas, because he introduces himself as the white court, and Harry's like, the white court, and Michael's
Michael's
like, 3 cords, black court, and Reggie's like, I knew that.
although the black, and then Thomas is like, black cord's really,
Yeah. The poor deers have fallen on hard times. They barely exist anymore, yeah.
So we know that not only is Mavra of the Black Court, but she is one of the few left of the Black Court. Whatever a few vampires means.
Yeah. Yeah. There's only like, 20 million instead of a billion now.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about. Yeah. So she's basically as dead can be. Apparently doesn't get to look purty like the Reds do. The Reds can either look gross and slimy and bat-like, or they can put their little flesh masks on and just pass for everyday purty people. And again, we don't know if that's like a part of like who they look like as a human, or if they can pick any face they want, or because it just says they have this mask that they pull on.
a little camouflage.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. But anyways, and then it was funny because, again, the reread and the intense and, like, really listening when we were talking about that. And then all of a sudden I had just, like, this crazy comical moment of just, like, almost like a cartoon or, like, paper cutout copy of puppet thing of like Mavra, where like the eyes are like googling or dancing and moving and like, or where they have like that superimpose like your mouth, like they'll take like a still photo of a celebrity and then they put Jimmy Fallon's mouth talking or whatever. Oh. It's like almost like that, because they're like, she just was perfectly still with like her eyes in her hands, and like all of a sudden my brain just went to like this comic thing of like these eyes like darting back and forth and like this entire body that like doesn't move. But yes, I don't think it was as comical as that for Harry and them. I think it was a lot more creepy.
Probably a little scary.
Oh, shit. Scary.
Part of the dramatics, too, is that, like, Michael turns into, like, full-on presenter again. He's like, Harry, Wizard of the White Council. This is Mavra of the Black Court of Vampires. And it's like, damn, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like he's holding all of the supernatural trader cards,
Yes.
exactly who every single person is.
The Nico D'Angelo with his mytho magic cards.
Right. It's like, again, is this supposed to be like either convenience of having her? Like, is this a specific nod to Michael having been in the game longer than Harry? Like, again, they're emphasizing this 20 years that he's got, that he's like, I already met, like, I know. Yeah. It's like, you sort of know these things are out here. I've been dealing with them.
Which I really do think is a part of it, too, is like, it just elevates Michael that much more. It's like, he may not be our main character, but like,
yeah.
To a point, he's almost the talking head. Sorry, Bob.
don't underestimate him and stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's not just he's.
I think it's a really great way of imparting information to your reader without having Harry hold all of the cards, kind of thing.
Well, exactly,
and add depth to it, to a character at the same time.
Yeah. Exactly. It is a nice way, and like I say, that's the advantage that, I mean, again, it would have been weird if Susan was like, I'm like, okay, well, she's a reporter, but whereas Michael, it's like, no, this dude knows what's going on. Yeah. Like, he seems meek, mild-mannered, whatever, but as Harry's been telling us, like, just because he's polite doesn't mean he won't kick your ass and kill the fuck out of you.
And it shows how much of a badass he is, because it's not just like, oh yeah, I know this one, but I know this one because I killed your brother. I know this one because I killed your children and your grandchildren.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true too. Whereas Harry is starting to have.
I read about him in a book. Michael, I've killed your whole family. What up, bitch?
Well, okay, I was gonna say you read about him in a book, but Harry is like, with Bianca, I'm like, he's sort of a social way of starting to get to know some of these entities and things and stuff like that, right? Where he's got to interact with them without, like, not a great example, but like the street wolves or whatever, right? It was like, okay, well, now you're aware that they exist and you have to, play by the rules and not, same thing as like, the vampire court, you have to play by the rules, come to the party, whereas Michael's like, I don't socialize with these, I don't have to, it's just I've met them and killed them. Yeah.
And my history with this people is well established.
Yeah.
I do also like, though, it helps establish too, like, there's going to come a time and point when Harry surpasses the supernatural knowledge that Michael has, right? And this really does help lay the groundwork to, like, show just how far Harry's going to come one day,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, for now, like...
The student has become the teacher.
Well, fully, it's like, it's not even like, I mean, it becomes a big thing in the books when, like, all the bad guys are like, you don't know shit. Like, like, even with Kyle and Kelly, like, is that what she told you her name was? Like, every villain gets to have that speech with Harry, book after book after book after book after book, and they're like, you're so dumb. You think this is what's happening? Like, okay, right?
Yeah.
But it really shows it now, because it's like, even in this, it's like, Murphy was imparting all the information to Stormfront and Full Moon. You've got Michael, who's been doing a lot of this in the Grave Peril. And next book, we're going to obviously meet with Lily and Fix and them, and they're going to be giving a lot of this background, or you're going to meet the Queens, right? Like, you've got a lot of these other people who are constantly just like, information dump, information dump, information dump, and Harry's like, fuck, like, I'm a wizard, I know, like, I can keep up with this, it's okay. But then, as we get on to things like changes and shit, it's all these other characters who are running after Harry, like, fuck, tell us the plan. He's like, I don't have time for that, like, bitch, meet me in Mexico tomorrow, like, right? It's like, no big spoilers, but a lot of the cast that we meet in these next few books are running on Harry's heels by changes and, further on from there, right? Yeah. So it really does show just how much of,
forward trajectory.
How much this boy's growing, yeah.
Yeah, how much he doesn't know and how much he's gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, it's funny to look back and try to remember, like, we've read the entire series, we know what's gonna happen, we know who's who, we know at this point who to trust and who we are gonna learn more about, and we know who's dead right now in reality and whose conversations don't matter and what these people mean in this moment and, like, what is this thread or this bargain or what it's going to pay off, right?
Who are the ones that are repeats.
To go back and read this again and remember and be like, oh, baby doesn't know anything. Oh.
Right. But apparently he has learned to hold his tongue for, like, half a second. I don't know, again, if this just serves the plot of the book or maybe, Faravac's smacking him on his ass. Because, yeah, he gets the spidey sense starts tingling, so he pulls up the site, and there's this Hamlet person who they thought had wandered off is standing on the stairs. And she's like, well done, wizard. You know, she's like, very few can see me when I do not wish to be seen. And he's like, thank you. Excuse me, we're leaving. You know? And then again, he's like, oh, this is time, you know, I get to socialize and meet. And he's like, I don't have time for pleasantries. And he's like, you know, thanks, ma'am. And please, you know what I mean? Like, he's being so, like, where everybody else, I mean, wizards, and they're like, Kyle and Kelly's like, fucking, so you're like, oh, here's another vampire. Like, even Thomas, like, they didn't have a negative interaction, but they've been wisecracking and beaking off to each other. You know, I mean, Thomas has been giving it back. That's why Harry likes, right? Yeah. But, I mean, there's no formality. There was no professionalism or whatever, you know?
And what's especially funny at this whole point upwards as well is that you know that Bianca has, like, the red court behind her. You know that Thomas has the white court behind him. You know that Fairfax has
just a big scary
fucking goddamn power behind him.
Has his pinky finger behind him.
You know, the Leanne side has, like, the,
yeah.
you know,
fairy
whatever,
courts,
fairy court behind her, right? For all intents and purposes, this is, like, the number one easiest hit in the play. She'd be like, the black court doesn't have anyone behind her. And he's like, hi, ma'am, sorry, ma'am, we were just leaving, ma'am.
Exactly. It's like if you just fucking blasted her off her ass when you first got to the stairs. But no, you had to go mess with the dragon first, and now you're a little bit cautious.
Yes, ma'am, sorry, ma'am, we were just leaving, ma'am.
Yeah. So she decides no. And she points out what they were hoping to avoid.
Yes. Mavra knows somebody is not covered under the protection of hospitality.
Yes.
She tells Dresden to choose who is going to leave, and the other one is going to be hers.
She'll have a discussion with them.
Chomp chomp.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Susan, too. Yeah, because Michael's like, she's no lady. You know, she's Mavra, blah, blah, blah. And then Susan's like, oh, a real vampire. Click. It's like, fuck, Susan. So it's like, I don't know whatever else you've been doing or whoever else you may or may not have been talking to this whole time, but now that, like, these other guys are having a conversation that you're not included, and, you know, now you're like, oh, I'm like, it doesn't matter that you were talking to, like, a really high, like, fairy, you know, who, like, explained to you why you were in trouble. Then she was like, oh, whatever, but now she's like, oh, a vampire. Like,
I know Susan had a lot of shit going on, but, like, I kind of wish she'd kept up with this whole, like, reporter shtick in further books too, like just as like a non-stop habit, just like let me get out my pad and pen. You know? It's like after this she's obviously got bigger worries, right? Yeah. But I'm just like, it's kind of funny. It's like she just was really leaning into it in these early books.
Right, it was her whole raison d'etre.
Yeah.
So Michael volunteers to stay, but Susan isn't having anything to do with it. She's like, nope. All right, maybe.
Yeah. So so this is the thing, is that we learned that Mavra's got a specific beef with Michael because of it too, right? So she's like, yeah, pick. And he's like, well, if it's not Michael, she's like, well, we'll have words because he like slaughtered all the vampires I made, right? And Michael's like, I'll be fine. She's like, shame you don't have the sword, right? So yeah, and then Harry's like, well, if I leave Susan, then she's definitely not. There's no mitigating circumstances, but yeah, I'm like,
the funny thing here though is that like you'd think it'd be Bianca's right to the uninvited guest.
Oh,
not
yeah,
this other random guest.
Yeah, you're right, and it hasn't really been said here. I mean, yeah, we find out that Mavra's kind of an important guest and stuff like that, but yeah, you're right. You'd think it would. They broke Bianca's rule. Bianca would be the one to get to say what happens or not, whether she should get first dibs or not, but maybe it's simply a case of finders keepers,
yeah, I was gonna
you
say,
know?
Mavra called dibs first.
Yeah, it's like, maybe she's like, I'm the one that spotted, I'm the one that knows you're the fake, so I get to...
She might be just trying to take advantage of that moment for herself, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, and she's got options, because, I mean, if he takes Michael and runs, then she could always offer to turn Susan over to Bianca, and Bianca can either accept it or be like, oh no, go ahead, Mavra, she's all yours. And same thing, if she gets Michael, she could be like, I have beef with this guy, mind if I, you know, and Bianca could be all, oh, absolutely, go ahead. And, you know, so I'm like, either way, I suppose she can still...
And you make a good point that Bianca's probably already dispatched her anyways to go and do this. There's a good chance.
Yeah.
Put up to it, if it wasn't even Mavra's idea in the beginning, but...
Yeah,
Either
exactly. Way. But yes, you're right. It's we don't know if she's poaching or not here.
But still, if I were Harry, I'd have been like, oh, shouldn't this be Bianca's choice?
Yeah, you think he'd be like be pulling out any card he could to
right?
try and delay the inevitable. Be like, excuse me, you're not the boss of this party, all right?
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
Except he's too busy looking in Susan's picnic basket.
Yes.
Snooping.
Right. Well, yeah, they're kind of having this conversation. Susan's like, excuse me, I'm a part of this too. And notices that, when she moves past that, finally the vampire like flinches or whatever. And I love this line. She's like, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? He's like, I'm just looking in your picnic basket. I'm like, thank you, Yogi Bear.
He discovers holy water, garlic, crosses, and a 45.
Yeah. Is that a 38? It's a 45.
So Dresden takes the garlic and tosses it towards Mavra, who instantly just poof, out of the way.
Just,
fuck
zaps
that.
herself out of the way, yeah. None of this doesn't deign to, jump out of the way or like, eh. She just ceases to be there anymore. So Justin's like, oh, boom, yeah. And this is, and there's like, oh, this is the whole, I think this is where he makes here it is where he makes the reference to, because he's like, oh, does this actually like bother you or whatever? And then when she flinches away from me, he's like, I'd say that's a big yes. He's like, is that what happened? Stoker published the big book of Black Court vampire slaying.
I love that he takes like actual real books to add to the Dresden verse lore.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and I swear we've had, I don't know if it's in Buffy or somewhere else, or maybe it's just here, but I'm like, I feel like we've had reference to that elsewhere, where basically they were like, Stoker's book was like a how-to guide on how to, but regardless, it's nice. So it's like, so apparently these things are all effective in this case.
I like how Harry lost the manners real quick.
Yeah.
As soon as who threw the garlic? Was it Michael?
He did.
Oh, it was Harry who threw the garlic. But
Yeah,
it's like
he's like sniffing through the basket. He takes it out and
Yeah.
flicks it at her.
tosses the garlic, and he's instantly I can be a dick again. I have garlic.
Yeah, it's like, I have the upper hand again. He's like, wait, I know who you are and what you are. And now it's like,
Instantly,
okay,
he's like, all right.
you're no dragon.
Yeah.
Let's do this shit.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, is it a dragon? Not a dragon? Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, it matters little, your people of paper and cotton, I can rip you to shreds or whatever. He's like, unless we've had an extra spicy pizza. So he's like, basically right then he's like, let's get out of here, guys. And and then she pulls out the magic to stop them.
Yeah, she gathers the darkness into her hands, and Harry recognizes the energy and figures that Mavra is the one that has been pulling the strings on the nightmare.
So there's that dark, corrupt, barbed wire magic, right? So he's like, booyah. Unfortunately, she's now trying to use it on us and block our escape, but I figured it out.
So, not only is she a vampire, but she's also a wizard, which is cheating.
Yeah, because Susan's like, can vampires do that? He's like, wizards can. It's like, no fair, you don't get to double up.
Yeah.
Well, and Dresden does realize she's waiting for him to take the first, for him to take the first swing. So she's just sort of threatening him.
Yeah,
like,
so he's
do
like
it,
gets
do
on the
it, do
defensive for a second and then realizes she's just holding position. And he's like, oh, because you can't.
Laws of hospitality.
Yeah.
That's a big.
Yeah, so then he's like,
Gotcha for everybody.
He's like, I'm not going to do anything because then I'm be the one, right? So he's like, we're just going to walk out of here because if you make a move against us, right? So they've got this bit of a standoff for a bit. So I feel like she does eventually go to make a move because that's when Susan and Michael pull the crosses out. So does he eventually provoke her into...
Well, what happens first is he tells her to move, and otherwise he's going to turn her into a greasy spot on the floor, and she takes offense to that.
Right, yeah.
And lunges, and that's when the two of them pull their crosses out.
So so that's when he provokes her into making the first move, is it? That she starts to come at him, yeah. And he's like, prepared, but kind of like with thing, like not prepared enough. It was like, like you sort of were expecting Mr. Farrow to do something, but he's like, caught me a breath too late, and I was in the same thing here. He's like, I expected her to move something, but I wasn't fast enough, and thankfully, Susan and Michael saved my ass again. But yeah, they've got him using his cross hilt dagger as a sword, and her using one of the crosses in her picnic basket.
So confirmed, Susan is Catholic.
Susan has some faith there,
Christian. I guess it doesn't have to be Catholic.
Yeah,
has faith in the Lord.
Has some
faith in the cross,
faith
at least.
in the cross or something. Which
I love Michael's moment here, right? When because it diffuses Mavra's spell, and he's starts to spout off at Mavra. Blood of the dragon, that old serpent, Michael said quietly. You and yours have no power here. Your threats are hollow. Your words are empty of truth, just as your heart is empty of love, your body of life. Cease this now before you tempt the wrath of the Almighty. He glanced aside at me and added, probably for my benefit, or before my friend Harry turns you into a greasy spot on the floor. Yes.
Keeping the whole blood of the dragon, blood of the dragon, that old serpent or whatever like that is
like a Lucifer
yeah,
reference.
it's like a Lucifer reference, right?
Well, she's got evil magic.
No, I know.
So
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
I thought with
we've got a dragon in the room.
We do.
I thought that with with Bram Stoker's stuff when he's talking about the Dracula's something of the dragon. But I
do not.
I don't remember properly, so that might be an allusion to Dracula.
Maybe.
Witch. Oh, God.
Also. Yeah, I don't know. I just took because that old serpent, like not the blood of the dragon specifically, but that old serpent definitely to me was like, oh, that sounds like an old
I had
biblical reference.
Yeah, I had something here that I don't really believe in, but it was like the name Lucifer comes from the Latin luci or lux, meaning light, and fair comes from pharaoh as in bearer or bringer. So sometimes Lucifer being referred to as a dragon. But that seems a little bit far-fetched.
A little bit of a stretch to connect them.
But when, you bring up the fact we've got, Dracula.
Yes.
And I might be thinking of some other offshoot books that are not specifically Bram Stoker.
Yeah, and I've never actually read the
remember.
original Dracula or anything like that, so I don't. But yeah. Either way, though, basically, yeah, not good magic. Definitely in opposition of the White Lord, the Almighty. So yeah, basically he's like, whatever, you hold no sway, you've got no power, he's like, and also Harry can also, yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So she backs off a bit then, and then basically, yeah, she's like, well, no matter, time's up. And they're like, what, Howard, what? Susan's like, what do you mean? And she's like, the hour of socialization. And they're like, what? I guess whatever, but it's like she just walks up and closes the doors. I'm like, you couldn't have done that in the first place. Like, I don't know, I get the whole thing, but I'm like, apparently, like, so there's no other, servants, guards, whatever you want to call them, at the doors leading out. They've just encountered Mavra on the steps, and she's like, oh no, you can't go, you have to. And then I'm like, basically, it's like, once the clock strikes midnight, she just walks up and closes the door and is like, you can't leave. Like, how is that any different from like 30 seconds ago? Let's open the door again and leave. Like, I was like, she still can't take action against you, or she's broken so I'm like, I don't, and it's one person. It's like, obviously you didn't have like 3 people come alone and like close these giant doors and put a crossbar across them, and I don't know.
And we'll get that to in the next chapter though, but that's getting a little bit ahead, but it says that that they can't leave once court is in session because it's an affront to Bianca herself, and that she can take instant revenge.
I guess, but because boom, it's that literal. Maybe that's
the lights go out at the same time.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's the whole thing. It's just that the time is signifying. But yeah, it's just like basically, I'm like, just fucking close the doors, fucking open them and walk out. Like, it's like you're not actually like blocked in here anymore. You still only got one person between you and the outside.
Intermission has ended. It's rude to leave in the middle of the show.
Take the whole thing as an affront, anyways. Like,
and was it actually Mavra? Because
yes,
it was okay. Because it. Oh, okay. All right.
The hour of socialization. Mavra whispered back. She continued up to the top of the stairs and gently shut the doors leading out.
Right,
they closed with an ominous boom. All the lights went out, all but the pale blue nimbus around my hand and the faded glory of the 2 crosses.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, right? Like, yes, I guess, obviously they have to stay, blah, blah, blah. But it was just, again, one of those things that just seemed kind of like, again, more ceremonial than, Like,
yeah, they're all about that pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, fucking turf the vampire and go. Yeah. Like... Be like, I'm sorry, your watch is a little fast. Mine says it's still only...
I did love this passage, though, when the lights go out. Laughter, gentle and mocking, quiet, hissing, thick with something wet and bubbling.
It's all their spit.
Came from all around us.
They don't have spit left.
When it comes to spooky laughter, it's tough to beat vampires. You're going to have to trust me on it. On this one, they know it well.
Yeah, it was creepy. Gentle, mocking, bubbling.
It's the wet and bubbling thing.
I know. Icky.
Thomas and Justine come to Dresden and ask if they can stand with them.
Mind terribly. Again, would you mind terribly if I stood with you? I'm not awfully well liked around these parts. And then he notices too that he's got like this ugly thing. This is like a brand or something. But he notices it's like lips, and he's like, "Oh yeah, your godmother gave me a kiss." It's like,
yeah, brutal.
Yeah,
She's got a lot of power,
right? And yeah, this is her being nice to Thomas. So he lets his little defensive spell fade gently, and then we get a spotlight up on the dais. And her flaming dress. It was actual flames.
Cannons.
Yeah. All rise. Oh, yeah, she gets up to make her speech, and then Dresden is the one who mutters, yeah, all rise, I whispered as soft whispers and moans rushed out of the darkness around us. Not at all human. Vampire court is now in session. So, yeah, Mavra managed to stall long enough that was their one itty-bitty opportunity to get the fuck out. And now, not so much.
Oh, they can't.
Yeah, they can't. Now it'd be super doubly rude to... Now, yeah, I guess that's it. It's like they don't even have to, like, start a fight or do anything. Now it's, like, literally just, like, leaving would be enough to break that. It's like, fuck.
This concludes our episode 8.14, All Rise. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.